Alright, I'm going to do a quick explanation of what a subframe kit is, what it does, and explain what axle wobble is and what causes that. Subframe kit is basically a set of bolts and a set of spacers that allow you to lower the engine. If you have a Honda or any other independent front suspension vehicle lifted too high, the axles will be at too great of an angle and they can sometimes bind, especially under acceleration. So that's what the subframe kit does. And if you've lifted your Honda and you have this problem, there's a couple of things you can do before you end up having to buy the subframe kit. Of course, I want you to buy the subframe kit, but if you don't need it, then you don't need it, you know. So the first thing I always tell people is check your axles and make sure they're in good condition. Make sure they're not worn out, or you know, if you've got parts store axles, sometimes they're not made to the same spec as a factory axle, and they can actually, you know, be loose and then make that vibration. So factory axles are always a good idea, and get new ones. Get like new factory axles. You know, used ones probably still not going to be much better than what you got. So do that. The other thing you can do is make sure your motor mounts are good. And what you might even consider doing is putting stiffer mounts in. If you notice that under acceleration is when you usually get this axle vibration. And if you think about the force that the engine is exerting on the wheels, it moves the engine a little bit, and that even causes a greater angle for the axles. So if you install stiffer engine mounts, it actually holds the engine still and prevents it from moving to the point where it causes the axle vibrations. So that's two things you can do. A third thing you can do is actually what we're going to show in this video, and that is installing a set of washers between the engine brackets and the engine. That basically lowers down the engine just a little bit without you having to buy all new extended hardware. So the washer technique allows you to keep your factory bolts. You don't have to buy anything else, and sometimes just that little bit can be enough to eliminate the problem. In this video, we actually show installing a stack of 3 washers to get rid of a slight axle wobble in a 2006 Element, and it has 2.5-inch spacers in the front and 1.5-inch spacers in the back, which gives an overall lift of 3 inches. So the washer technique will also work with the 9701 CRV and also Civic models. You know, each one will have its own procedure of how to install them. But basically, that's what you'll do is put the bolts between the engine itself and the engine bracket so that it lowers the engine down just enough to straighten the axles out where they don't wobble or vibrate at certain speeds. So that's pretty much it, and enjoy the video.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Ben with the Honda Rescue Garage YouTube channel. Before we get started on the Element Subframe Kit video, I wanted to announce the winner of our lift kit giveaway from the last video. And the winner is Simon Pritchett. He guessed 88,491 miles, and the actual mileage of the car at the time of the video was 88,441, so he was only off by 50 miles. He is by far the closest guess. I had to laugh at a couple of people that guessed 200,000 and 300,000. I mean, I said right in the video that it was less than 100, so that was actually kind of funny. But so big shout out to all the people who guessed. I really appreciate all the positive comments, and I really appreciate all the positive feedback I get from you guys for these videos. It's really cool. We just passed 1,300 subscribers. I'm loving it. So keep it up, guys. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. And at the end of this video, I'm actually going to do another giveaway. So watch to the end, and you'll see what we're giving away at the end of this one. But for now, here is the subframe kit video. Okay, so our spacer goes between this bracket and the actual engine. So we've got to take this nut off and this bolt. But the problem is that this stud is so long that the deep well socket isn't even long enough. See how that's sticking through, and I can't get this down in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this off. I'm going to trim that right there. Don't tell anybody. Alright guys, so unfortunately I lost the footage of me putting the spacers in on the passenger side, but never say die. I've got these diagrams to help us figure it out. These 2 spacers here go between the engine bracket and the engine on the passenger side, and the kit will come with an extended bolt, an M12x65. Driver's side will come with these 3 spacers and an extended M12x60 that go between the bracket and the transmission. All right, so the first thing we got to do is take all this stuff out of the way. And if you're crazy enough to take this project on, you probably don't need me to show you how to take out stuff like the battery and this tie down and stuff like that and this intake. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just a couple of screws and then just loosen this stuff up, take it all off. That's going to get us access to the engine mount, which is buried way down in there. So let's get all that stuff out of the way. I don't really need to show it to you, so I'm just going to time-lapse it and move on to the next step. So now that the air box is loose, that allows us to get the motor mount out, and I'm going to show you exactly where we have to put our spacers. So these 3 bolts are what connects the bracket to the actual transmission, and that's where we're going to drop it down by putting spacers in between this bracket and the transmission. That'll effectively lower the transmission just a little bit. So we need 3 spacers there. We're going to bolt it all back together. I point out to you guys, I didn't have to do anything as far as supporting the engine. I supported it with the jack just to be sure. But there's already enough support there, even after you take the motor mount out, that you don't even need to do that. So I know that sounds kind of risky or whatever, but there's plenty of support. It's like the cradle holds the engine up, so you don't have to worry about, you know, unloosening this mount to just do this job. Okay, so there's our 3 spacers, and I know what you're thinking, Ben, aren't those just washers? Well, as a matter of fact, those are washers, and the reason I'm doing it this way is just because this is a test fit, and if I need to stack more washers to get this to work, then I will know exactly how thick the spacers need to be. So if I add washers, or subtract or whatever, I'm starting out with 3 just to see if that does anything, and if not, I'll add more. Once I figure that out, then I'll know how thick to cut these spacers. Right now, I've just cut them about 1/4 inch. But this is all testing. This is testing right now, and it's showing you how to install it. But to be honest, guys, you could just use washers. I mean, there's nothing stopping you. I mean, I'd say buy my kit because it looks good and it's, you know, it's a finished product and it'll have instructions and all that. But I mean, if you're watching this video, you could just stack washers on there. You don't have to buy anything from me. I'm just trying to do this to help everyone. So, you know, that's all it is just a stack of washers, easily done. This actually has gone a lot easier than I expected it to as far as the install part of it. So I'm going to throw this all back together, and we're going to go drive this car around and see if just dropping the engine and transmission spacers will do anything, and if not, we're going to continue on to the subframe spacers. So stay tuned. All right, we are going for a test drive in the Element. Now, if you are skipping through this video, you don't know exactly what we're doing here. This Element is a 2006. We have installed a 3-inch lift kit on it, which consists of 2.5-inch spacers in the front, 1.5 in the back. Listen, it's 3 inches of lift. I mean, it doesn't make any sense that the spacers aren't exactly 3 inches, but that's just how Honda suspension is made, okay? I didn't design it, but that's how it works. 3 inches of lift from 2.5, 1.5. So the deal is this thing had a little tiny bit of axle shake on a right turn from a dead stop with heavy throttle. It's a very specific set of circumstances, but it was there, very, very slight. So we have done an engine and transmission spacer drop to eliminate that, and I'm just testing it now. And that was a not full throttle, but heavy throttle right turn, and the shimmy is gone. This thing is smooth as silk now. I mean, it was pretty smooth before, but we're gonna test it again. I'm having difficulty believing that it was that easy to repair. Oh, there's traffic coming. They probably wondering what the hell I'm doing. Well, look, I'm just testing lift kits, okay, people? All right, right turn, heavy throttle. That's it. That is all it took. It's smooth now. There's no shimmy, and I felt it before. Before I pulled it into the garage, I went ahead and tested it and make sure I could feel it, and it was there, and now it is not. It's just a little wobble, you know, under acceleration. Everybody that's watching this video, if you have a Element with axle shake, this is the cure. If it's a slight axle shake, this is the cure. It was easy to do. It took me about an hour. I mean, no trouble at all. There's no downside to it, to be honest. Other than just a little bit of work. Very low cost solution. Now, if you have severe axle shake, which means you've probably installed a 3-inch spacer, then it would require a thicker spacer to drop the engine down. And I think that 1/4 of an inch is all we can really do on the engine without dropping the entire cradle. So we're talking about the subframe / cradle. That's what that is. I would say an inch would be pretty doable and still pretty cheap. Edit that out. All right, we're gonna do a heavy throttle acceleration test from a dead stop, and here, I'll show you guys what it looks like. This is from a dead stop. I'm gonna punch it. Perfect. This thing is dirt slow. Brian, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, man. Your car's slow. Anyway, no, it's perfect. There's no shimmy at all. And no shimmy under a right turn throttle. I mean, I might drive it around just a little bit more to make sure, but I think we're good. I mean, that's 2-3 turns plus an acceleration run. There's no shake in the steering wheel at all. It is smooth as glass. So I'm calling that a win. I'm calling it done. I'm saying that is a victory. We have fixed the problem. And barring any other crazy circumstances, I think we're done. And that was easy to do, guys. So that's the magic. Alright guys, so since I lost all the footage of me doing the install on the lower part of the subframe kit, you just have to look at this diagram and use your imagination, but it's actually not that difficult. The kit will actually come with 4 extended bolts and then 4 spacers that go between the subframe kit and the body. Super easy to do. Took about maybe 30 minutes to do it. Nothing has to be disconnected. You literally just replace 1 bolt at a time and lower the subframe down, put the spacers in. Easy as pie. I do have all the footage of the rear installation, and I will show you that right now. We are underneath the Honda Element now, and I'm going to show you where the subframe kit attaches and how it works. This is the rear diff bracket, and there are 3 spacers that attach that to the subframe. And I know what you're thinking is, why did we not drop the rear diff along with the subframe? Well, I'll show you exactly why, and that is the axle clearance underneath on the exhaust, right? That's one reason, and also because there aren't really any axle issues in the back. So the angle, even though we've lifted it, isn't extreme enough to cause an axle issue. So it's because the axles are so long that the angle is just slight. So we left the diff in its location as it was before, and we just lowered the subframe around it, which also lowers the attachment points for the upper control arm and the lower control arm. So we got 1 spacer up here between the rear subframe and the body, and another spacer, hang on, where is it? Right there. See back there? That's the other spacer on this side, and then we also added the 2 spacers on the front of the lower control arm, and that essentially drops everything down and makes it line up properly. Now we have a 1.5 inch spacer on the strut, so all of this added together gives a 3 inch lift, and it maintains a much better angle on the upper and lower control arms. It maintains a proper angle on the sway bar. It just keeps everything happy. The suspension is not in a bind. We still have slack on our brake lines. It is all good. Okay, so these seem pretty straightforward to install. You're basically just dropping down this rear subframe, but there is a method to it that is going to be much easier, and it's going to save you a lot of headache to do it this way. All right, so the trick is you don't want to have to take apart anything that you don't have to take apart, just to save time. So what you want to do is take out 1 bolt at a time and replace them with the longer bolts, so that everything stays lined up. Because if you take all the bolts out at once, everything's just going to flop around, and you're going to have to really work to get everything lined back up. Alright guys, that's pretty much it for the installation. Now remember, everything in this video also applies to the 2002 to 2006 CRV, which brings us to the giveaway for this video. We're giving away a 2-inch lift kit for a 2002 to 2006 CRV. That'll come with front and rear spacers, all the hardware, instructions, and everything you need to install. We're also going to throw in some stickers. We just came up with some new designs on our rollover hazard stickers. We had the ones for the RD1 CRV and the old Civic wagon ones, but we also just added the 02 to 06 CRV design and the Element. So we've got those for sale on the website, HondaRescue.com, and of course all the lift kits are for sale at HondaRescue.com. So if you guys have any questions, you can email us through there, or if you want to order a kit, you can find them on HondaRescue.com. Here's what we're going to do. Last summer we went to the Gambler 500 in Tennessee in our lifted sedan and had a great time, but we We got stuck in a tunnel, like literally an abandoned tunnel in 2 feet of water, and our car broke down. So I know exactly how long we were in the tunnel because the GoPro was running the entire time. So the contest is, how long were we stuck in that tunnel? And if the first person that guesses it is going to win the kit. If nobody guesses it within 1 month, that's up to April 26th. I'll just pick the closest guess. But April 26th is the cutoff. We're not going to go past that. I'll pick something by then. As always, you know, the first guess is the one I'm going to count. So if you guess a bunch of times, I'm only going to count the first one. That's pretty much it for the rules. Enjoy, and listen, check that video out in the Gambler 500 where we took that car, and it was a crazy time. And other than that, I really appreciate you guys watching all the way to the end. Not very many people watch my videos all the way to the end, and if you did, post the words Army Green in the comments. That'll be awesome. People won't know what it means because nobody watches this far. So I really appreciate everybody that stuck with me this far, and I will see you in the next video. So yeah, thanks to all of you guys who entered. So thanks to all of you guys who actually made a good. God damn it! If you're on a budget, man, washers. That's all you got to do. You don't have to worry about. Fuck. Never mind.